Next, we'll talk about computer languages and deciding between what languages to use and a few other topics. Let's just start with what programming language to use. So successful applications can consist of multiple languages. It's not uncommon for even some of the larger kinds of products to be written in multiple languages. For the most part, there are going to be some trade-offs between different programming languages, but most of the time you can write whatever software that you have in almost any kind of language. There are some that are going to be better or more efficient than others for different purposes, and we'll get to that here in a second as we're looking at considerations. But you can go wrong with choosing what programming language to use, but sometimes you can get away with being in a suboptimal language. So just some important things to understand when you're making that choice or hiring someone that says, hey, here's what programming language I'm going to use. There are some specialized languages. So for example, Python is a very popular platform or language for machine learning and artificial intelligence. So if someone says, hey, I'm going to code your machine learning application in PHP, for example, which is another type of programming language, can it be done? Yes, it absolutely can be done, but there may be some libraries and other components that don't exist in one language versus another, which may make it harder, more time consuming to implement some of those programming languages. There are some that are considered easy to read languages where you want to go through the code and understand hey, how does this work, or what is this particular module doing. There are programming languages that are easier to read than others, but some things just to keep in mind is as you're going through, and we'll get to this on the next slide, but some of your considerations that we've talked about with different programming languages. Some are compiled versus non-compiled. So is this something that is going to exist on somebody's computer versus on your server? Things like readability are security are considerations for you. Finally on here, I have a comment on multi-threaded. So there are some programming languages like Google's Golang is optimized for multi-threaded processors where as you're writing code, you can have multiple events happening at the same time versus other programming languages are sequential in how the instructions are processed. So just keep in mind that a lot of that's going to have to do with the efficiency of your code and just in general the end user experience versus your ability to read the code versus the security on it and so forth. So as I mentioned, just some key considerations, the application type. Is this a desktop tool? Is this a command line tool? Is this cloud? Is this mobile? So something for the phone. What is the application purpose? Is it machine learning or AI, statistics, general computing, automation? All these are going to play a factor in when you make your decision as to what programming language should this be written in. Maintenance. So if it's a easier to read and understand programming language, maybe it's something where when it gets updated, there are certain parameters that you can update yourself. If you know where the configuration files are versus you have to hire somebody to do this. Maturity of programming language. So I see this a lot where companies and even individuals decide to go and build software in the latest programming language because they say, hey, look, this is really top of the line and this is going to future-proof me and all of that. And then they go out and try to hire people to do it. And because there aren't a lot of programmers that are on that platform. They might charge higher hourly rates for developing the software. They might charge higher fixed prices if you're doing a fixed price type of deal. So just keep in mind that the maturity of the programming language is going to matter in terms of the price that you're going to pay for developers, the amount of time it's going to take to develop, just because there's some libraries that make coding easier that are available in languages that are more mature and have been around for a while versus the newest buzzword that's out there. And as I said, availability of developers. Can you hire somebody at a price point that's affordable to you? You can find PHP developers out there for $5-10 an hour. You go and you try to find people who know Google's going. It may be harder to find people at those price points just because it's a newer type of language with fewer people that are experts in it and fewer libraries out there to do some of the things that are native to some of the other programming languages. And finally, just also consider in terms of your software requirements. Are you going to need things like load balancing? Are you going to need which essentially is a way to improve performance in your application. It allows you to use multiple servers to interact with, so that way there's lower latency between when somebody submits a request versus if you have 100 people in the system. So you want to look at things like is my code going to scale? Are there things that we can implement like load balancers to help that on the hardware side? Are there things we have to build in similar to that on the software side? And then just any type of uptime requirements, and if we need to start putting in failover, fail safe for applications.